Good morning, everyone. We are going to kick off the webinar in just a couple minutes here. We'll let a few more people hop on. Sweet. Well, we can get started. Thank you all for joining us today on our March webinar. We're chatting about content safaris, which we're super excited about. Just a couple housekeeping items. As you have questions throughout the webinar, feel free to drop them in the chat. And then we have some time set aside at the end, as long as we have enough time to kind of chat through those as a group. Or if you think of some after the webinar happens, always feel free to reach out to your AGCO Direct Account Manager. If you're not sure who that is, you can always start with ads@agcodirect.com too to get more information there. So we're going to go ahead and get started. First, we're going to kick it off with some intros and tell you about our presenters today. First off, my name is Jordan Nelson. I'm an account manager for AGCO Direct. I work with a lot of you here today on the call, so I'm super excited to be here. I've been on the AGCO Direct marketing team for about 4 years now, and I'm based out of Fargo, North Dakota. And I will kick it off to Bradley and Caitlin.
Perfect. My name is Bradley Bankin. I'm an account manager here at AGCO Direct. I'm on year 3, and I'm based out of Kansas City, Missouri. I primarily work with dealers out of the South and then the West Coast.
And then I'm Caitlin Marshall. I am also an account manager with the AGCO Direct team. I've been on this team for about 2.5 years now, and I primarily work with the Canadian dealers as well as a couple of dealers in the US.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So we'll just jump right in. And some of you may already know this, some of you may not, but so content safaris are our team's fun term for photo and video shoots at your dealership. There's a lot of different reasons why we would come out and do a content safari. For some dealerships, if they're having a big open house, it's a really good time to capture content. Maybe you just need more local content, photos and videos for your marketing tactics throughout the whole year. Others will have more of a traditional photo shoot and do maybe employee photos, maybe some commercials, things like that. Another great time to have a content safari done is if you have a really great customer story or testimonial that you can shoot and hone in on. Any time that you have anything special going on or just needing more content, always a great time to consider a content safari and incorporate it into your strategy for the year. Moving forward, why content safaris matter. So the power of authentic content. It'll resonate with your audience. So if you think about it, if you have just a photo of a piece of equipment that's a stock image on a Facebook post, as opposed to having a customer with their new Massey Ferguson purchase, for example, you're time and time gonna see the real person that people recognize and know, have way better engagement and overall reach. It'll also build trust with your audience. They're seeing people at the dealership that they know and recognize, images of the actual dealership that they would see if they came to visit you all. That those types of things really build trust and create brand awareness. And then two, it really humanizes the dealer brand. It'll give, again, those faces, those names that they can recognize and more so see your company's values, your mission, and different unique offerings that you have that maybe their competitors don't. And perhaps if your competitors are just kind of featuring that generic content, stock imagery, things like that. These will really make you stand out in terms of your marketing. It also is a great opportunity to showcase those local stories of your customers and employees, involvement that you have in the community, special things going on at the dealership. Those are the items that will really make your marketing stand out. So some benefits of content safaris. As we were chatting, of course, that organic, authentic content is always going to perform better. So we're going to see increased engagement. Increased engagement would be social media likes, shares, maybe visits to your website. Time and time again, we see this organic, created local content perform way better as opposed to stock imagery and things like that. Of course, there's a time and place for that, but anytime that we can really hone in on your dealer brand, we would love to do that. Also, it'll lead to better conversions. If we're getting more people to your website, there's a really great chance that we're also going to generate more leads through your website. Same with phone calls and things like that. We're going to turn that engagement into actual sales. Another point too is that long-term content strategy. It's a lot easier to do your marketing throughout the whole year when you have a full image and video library to pick from and pull from. It'll help with your team's efficiency and also just take some stress off your team and have content readily available. And then reinforced brand identity as well. So when we have this curated content, we're able to really focus on the values and unique offerings of your dealership. Maybe there's certain specials, maybe you have something special that you feature in your dealership, whether it's an old tractor, employee photos, a mural, things like that will really make your brand stand out. And we love to feature anything that makes you unique and special. So now we're going to jump into some different dealer case studies. These are examples that Caitlin, Brad, and I have worked on over the last year with other dealerships like yours. You'll see that these really range in terms of the amount of time that's put into them, and then also range in what the goal of the content safari was. And of course, that will kind of play into the overall investment of it as well. So this first example here was with Atlantic and Southern. This took place last summer, I believe. So while chatting with them, we had put together a full new marketing plan with them for the year. And one place that we all agreed is that it would be really great to have some custom content to feature in their marketing, whether it was for brochures, digital, on their website, and things like that. So our team made a list of objectives of different potential things that we would like to capture. This included equipment in the field, where they were located to make sure that crops and overall landscape looked and matched their customer base. Exterior shots of their newer dealership location. A few years back, they built this beautiful location on a hobby farm almost with a lot of land surrounding it. So we really wanted to capture that and show their customer base how special that location was. We were also lacking parts imagery for their parts e-commerce and general parts campaigns that would be helpful to have. And then just overall video content, employee testimonials, footage of the dealership, some drone footage, things that they could leverage for their YouTube channel and other things like that too. So in terms of execution, and you'll see that this one differs quite a bit from the ones that Caitlin and Brad are gonna share with us, as this one was a really quick, fast-paced and efficient content safari. Not that theirs weren't, but this one, time was of the essence. I think when we first proposed this idea, it was about a month before the actual content safari happened. And I wanted to include this example because it kind of showcases that it doesn't need to be this big production. There's always the option of doing a really simplified approach and still getting some great content. So how this worked is we had a quick 30-minute pre-planning call with my dealer contact. We just kind of chatted through, like, obviously time, place, the amount of time they wanted to put into this, budget, and then some key things that they wanted captured. From there, I brought that back to our team and they developed this shot list, which it's kind of hard to see here, the exact details, but we kind of just outline the different angles we'd want. And then like obviously equipment focus, if we wanted employees, if we wanted parts and service, things like that. From there, I think, like I said, about a month later, myself and another team member flew out to their Tifton, Georgia location. We allotted for 8 hours for the shoot and only ended up needing 4 to capture everything, which was great. We were really efficient with our time there, which was awesome. And then 2 weeks later, we had all the assets packaged up and shared back with the dealer. So all in all, about a month in the making for this whole content safari, pre-planning and final deliverables delivered, all wrapped up into one. So for the outcome, we had a full library of photo and video assets for the dealership to use. Like I said, this included some employee testimonials. We had drone footage, a lot of images outside of all their equipment. And then we also got some extra images of special things at the dealership, like this trailer they just had wrapped that they really wanted a photo of to feature on social. And then they had some older Massey Ferguson models inside their dealership that we captured. And then just general employee photos of them working with customers. And then employees also, as you can see on the actual equipment. And then we had some really great videos in the field of some equipment in action, which was great. And so all in all, the dealer was really happy with the success of the photo shoot, the amount of time that went into it, their investment, and everything just came together really nicely. And all these photos, while they were taken almost a year ago now, are still very relevant and things that we're utilizing into their marketing today. So yeah, so I'm going to kick it off to Caitlin. And again, feel free to drop any comments or questions you have in the chat. We would love to chat through those at the end of this presentation.
Thanks, Jordan. So I'm going to walk through a content safari we did with Alliance Ag Equipment. This content safari was this previous August. A couple of objectives we had going into this was images for their new website and then images to be used in our marketing creative. We knew within the following 6 months or so, we'd be launching and building a new website for Alliance. So that was one of our bigger focuses. You'll see a little bit later on some of those images and how we implemented those into the new website. So with that, we did make sure to grab some employee headshots, both interior and exterior images of the 4 dealerships and their headquarters, and then any additional images as needed that we could then implement into the website. We also focused a little bit on grabbing some images to be used in their marketing creative. We have a full marketing plan with Alliance, both digital and traditional. So we've been able to use both video and image content now this year for their marketing plan. So a little bit about execution. We did this in actually about 1.5 days. We first planned for a full 2 days worth of being out there and shooting both images and video. The first 2 dealerships, we spent a full day, half day at each. We did about 10-15 minutes at their headquarters just to grab some exterior and interior shots. And then the final 2, we did about 2 hours each and were able to wrap up a little bit early. With that, one of our main focus at each dealership was exterior shots. So the one image captured here is when we put a drone up in the air. Thankfully, the weather was okay, but we had to kind of stay flexible. If it rained, we wouldn't have been able to put that drone up, but thankfully we had pretty good weather. So we were able to put that drone up and capture exterior images at each of the locations. We also grabbed some great photos of equipment on the lots and then in the showrooms as well. Once we moved interior, we did a lot of focus on their parts and service counter and service shop. We kind of just used whatever they had in that day and shot what we could. So we weren't too focused on staying to the plan. We tried to use that overview that Jordan shared earlier of the Atlantic and Southern shoot. But with this one, we just made sure to stay flexible and grabbed what we could and of whatever was in the shop at that time. And then we also grabbed headshots. So whatever employees were at the dealership, we made sure to grab their headshot right away when we got there. That way they could go on with their business of the day. And we kind of moved pretty quickly with those and were able to get everything done in actually just a day and a half. As I mentioned, a lot of our focus was on image capture for their new website. On the one side here, you see those headshots we grabbed, and they're now part of our team page on their website. So we had a few employees that weren't available at that time, but I know Alliance is working on grabbing a couple of headshots for people that weren't available, and then we'll pop those in as well later on down the road. And then on the other side, you see an exterior shot, some interior shots. We were able to grab a service truck image. They had one of their service trucks at the shop that day. We were really able to incorporate all of the images or a lot of the images into the build of this new website. And it's really given the website that local feel, and it makes you realize that, hey, this is a dealership I know and trust. Those are employees' faces that I recognize, and we're able to really use that within the new website. And then finally, the marketing creative. So how have we been able to incorporate this into their marketing creative? So with their marketing plan, we have a couple of different digital tactics we're currently using. Google responsive display, digital radio, paid social, and then even some direct mailers as well. So all of the images in this creative were taken during this content safari, and then we were able to include it in basically everything we've done across the board. I think I've even heard a comment from my contact at the dealership that they've had some customers mention that they recognize the guys in these images, which is really great to see because it's going to be more personable, and the customer is going to be more likely to click on that ad if it's someone they recognize. With that, I am going to hand it over to Brad to walk through his content safari with Lavinka.
Awesome. Thanks, Caitlin. Yeah, so I got to do a shoot here, Content Safari, with Lavinka Equipment Company. We're actually hot off the presses. This shoot was at the start of March. So you'll notice that when we get to examples, we're still working through some of those final deliverables, but the focus of this Content Safari was on specifically Massey Ferguson CUE. We did a customer story as part of it, and then dealer branded content. So here's kind of the objective. Lavinka identified that their dealership had to push harder in the CUE market specifically. They ran into the issue that a lot of their customers see them as a big ag dealer, and that's it. They don't really do anything in that smaller unit. So they really wanted to find a way to tell their compact story. So beyond the Content Safari, we also have done some brand guide work specifically for that market. And then these images will incorporate into their marketing to help really push that CUE story. And so the objectives coming out of that shoot is we wanted to tell the story of one of their customers who had a great experience with both Massey Ferguson CUE and Lavinka. We wanted photos and videos for future CUE campaigns, and then dealership images for future marketing that they're going to do as well. So this one actually involved a lot of pre-planning. This was a 2-day shoot that covered quite a bit. So we had to do that customer story. That's almost a whole day on its own. And then there was a lot of other images that they wanted us to get as part of it. So it kind of started with this pre-planning. We did about 4 meetings leading up to the actual shoot. So first we did a discovery meeting, basically throwing out all on the table. If we could have everything in the world, what would we want out of this shoot? So that came down to, we wanted to tell this customer story. We really wanted images of the CUE in action. We wanted images of the lot and the compacts on the lot, as well as the other equipment on the lot. service images, and then some miscellaneous customer farms in the area, just showcasing different uses for the machines. From there, we kind of started outlining a shot list and then doing storyboarding as well. So since we knew we were going to be doing that customer story, we did a pre-interview with the customer just to talk about their experience, what things they were going to hit on, what likely shots we would get out of it. This is where that partnership is really important. So we actually were able to have the Livinka team go do location scouting for us. So where we would be shooting this customer story, they were able to go and take images and video beforehand to send to our team, so we would know what would the lighting look like, what are the best angles to hit on, where do we want to do these interviews, things like that. So a lot of this pre-planning helps it to go really smoothly in execution, which we'll touch on next. So execution, we were moving pretty quickly for 2 days. We started at sunrise and we're done about late afternoon, and really hit many locations. So that first day, we had that customer story with a company called GreenGo. They're a landscaping company, and they did a full renovation of a customer's house. So, you know, replanting plants, mulch movement, things like that, all that first morning. Then we went to this machine shed on the right that you can kind of see to do the interviews. So that's an inside location, keeps you out of the wind, make sure that the sound sounds good. From there, we actually went to the dealership for a bit to get some interactions on their sales floor of this customer and their sales guy who was doing the interviews and who made the initial sale. But while we were there, we also did parts counter images, we did sales offices, we did some external shots, and then also did some service images. And then we were on to the next day. We took some images in the customer's pasture. So using a 4700, just getting some working shots of how that product can be used to feed cattle, to move around bales, things like that. We did some customer field shots, so field service shots, which we'll have a few images of it at the end. And then they also have a home development branch. So they had a new home development that we could take some machines out to and get some alternative functions for CUE. So, you know, the rototiller attachment, material handling, things like that. Implementation is kind of in two pieces. So one is, how is Livinka going to be using the images? They're planning to use it through their organic social channels. They're going to do it for local marketing. So, you know, those one-off stories about the dealership, things where they might be doing a sponsorship for a local team, things like that, where they might need images for an in-placement ad, and then other marketing opportunities that arise. And then from our side, the plan is to implement it into their current CUE campaigns. So we'll be doing Google responsive or display network. We have some paid social, and then some digital radio ads as well that will be getting developed next month. So we'll be putting those into full swing here soon. And then finally, I just wanted to share some images. So these were the first images coming out of it. Like I said, we just finished this up about the shoot was about 3 weeks ago. So like I said, we have this customer interaction on the sales floor, just some close-ups of their branding in attachment with Massey. And then we also got some service images for both Fendt and Massey that they can use in the future as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Brad and Caitlin. Those were great. As we chatted about earlier, if you have any questions for any of us, feel free to drop them in the chat. Otherwise, we can kind of kick it off with some questions. So the first one we have here was asking if we had any recommended cameras, mic, or different gear to use if they were to do a content safari on their own.
I know our studio team has a wide range of cameras that they use. So I believe what we were shooting for Livinka was a Canon E6 for the base, and then 30, different lenses. So we'd have a telescopic lens, and then I think we had a 35mm as well. That's on the fancier side. Those are probably, $5,000+ for all those pieces. Mics kind of vary. Just depends on what you're using it for. So, outside mics versus inside mics, things like that. So it can really scale based on what you're trying to do. But also sometimes in the simplest fashion, you can just use your iPhone and still get really good content, just making sure that you're keeping out of the wind, using a mic tie-in if you can, things like that.
That was great. Thanks, Brad. Next question here. How much time does it take to complete a content safari from planning to final distribution?
I can jump in for Lubinka's. So we started talking about that one about mid-November. This one had a lot of planning, and honestly, our biggest inhibitor on doing it faster was timing. So obviously winter hit after that. They wanted grass to start being greener and it to look more like the season you would be using your CUE for landscaping. So that was kind of the biggest push for why we pushed to March. All in all, planning probably took about 2 months with all the pre-planning, but it can go much faster than that.
And just to add to what Brad just mentioned, his Levinko shoot was a much larger scale. If it's a smaller scale shoot, it can be pretty quick turnaround. I think Jordan mentioned basically a month from start of planning to being out at the dealership to shoot that content safari. So we can move pretty quick if they're a smaller content safari, but if they are on the larger side, they do take some more planning before we're able to really get into the weeds of things.
Awesome. Had another question here asking if content safaris are co-op eligible and how the dealer would be billed through AGCO Direct. Content safaris will work just like any other marketing activity through AGCO Direct, where our team will pay the full bill and then you can use your co-op for it at that 60-40 split, and you'll just be billed that 40% of the final cost. And that includes our team's time, travel, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have some questions on overall cost. Cost is really going to depend on quite a few factors, like if we're doing a big shoot like the Helvinka example where we have multiple shooters, lots of expensive camera equipment, how many team members we're flying out, as opposed to the Alliance one where it was just myself and one photographer. Things like that are really going to play into price, similar to how long we're shooting, for the type of content we're gathering. So if you have more questions on like a specific price point, reach out to your AGCO Direct account manager and they can provide some more insight on that, and go from there. And yes, another question here, if we have any availability in the next few months. Yes, I'm sure we have availability. We'll just work with you and your team on specific dates when our photo video team has availability as well. Yep. I know the summer schedules get pretty packed quickly. So if you do have any interest, feel free to reach out as soon as you can, and we can get something on the books and make sure that we're doing it in a time that works best for you. Okay, I think we have a couple more here. Can we customize the content safari experience to focus more on certain aspects of our dealership? For example, specific products or services?
I can kind of take that one. Of course, we can customize it. Kind of like Brad mentioned, they had a pretty good focus on some customer testimonials, and that was a very specific to that shoot. For Alliance, our big concern was images for the website, and they're as well a big Rogator dealer. So a lot of our images were captured with service on a Rogator. That way we could really use it for their full marketing plan going forward.
Awesome.
And some other ideas of what dealers have done. So like Levinka, this is actually their second shoot. First shoot we did with them was like a new store opening that was going to be like an AGCO specific location. So they really wanted to tell that story. So it can very much vary, to Caitlin's point.
I think some other dealers have also had a content safari during an event. So if you have a large event going on and you really want to capture images at that particular event, that's a great opportunity to also have a content safari.
Mhm.
Agreed. One last question here. When you guys discuss all the photos for the website, for the Alliance example, have these companies moved to the new website and made them more personal?
So with Alliance in particular, we did move them to our new website platform that we just launched a couple of months ago. They were one of our first website launches on the new platform. So we definitely were able to make it a lot more personal to them as a dealership. You know, we have a lot of images at all 4 of their locations, and all of those have been implemented with this new website for them.
Another question here. How would a Safari work with dealers that carry other short lines or OEMs? We could certainly also take photos and videos of your other OEM's equipment as well. Of course, that portion of the content Safari wouldn't be eligible for co-op, but we could certainly incorporate that into the overall plan for the day. And then yes, there will be a question on if there will be a recording. We will be sending a follow-up email after this with a link for you can watch this again. Sweet. Well, I think that is all of our questions here in the chat. But like I said, if you have questions after the webinar, please reach out to your ACO Direct Account Manager. If you're not sure who that is, you can just email ads@acodirect.com as well. But we appreciate you all taking the time to watch the webinar today. And thank you. Have a good rest of your day.